Is your brain a portal, not a processor? For centuries, we've told ourselves a simple, powerful story about the 3-pound organ between our ears. That your brain is a biological computer, a processor of staggering complexity, running the software of your mind and generating every single thought, feeling, and experience you've ever had. But what if that story is completely wrong? What if the exact opposite is true? What if your brain doesn't create consciousness at all, but is actually a portal, tuning into a universal consciousness that exists all around us? What if the very source of your awareness isn't locked inside your skull, but is a fundamental part of reality itself? Section 1. The ghost in the machine. The conventional view, the one that still dominates mainstream neuroscience, is that the brain makes the mind. And it's a compelling idea. We can see how brain injuries affect personality, how chemicals alter our mood, and how electrical signals correlate with thoughts. This has led to powerful models of how the brain works, like predictive processing, which paint a picture of the brain as an incredibly sophisticated prediction machine. But for all our progress, we've slammed headfirst into a wall. A problem so profound, it has its own name: the hard problem of consciousness. The easy problems involve figuring out what the brain does, how it processes information, focuses attention, or controls your body. The hard problem is explaining why any of that should feel like anything. Why does a bunch of neurons firing in response to light waves feel like the color red? Why do vibrations in the air feel like the beauty of a symphony? Science can't explain how a purely physical process, just a collection of cells, can give rise to the rich, private, subjective world of your inner experience. The fact that we haven't solved this doesn't disprove the processor model, but it does crack the door open to ask a much more radical question. If the processor isn't creating the experience, could it be doing something else entirely? Section 2. Tuning into reality. The filter hypothesis. This brings us to a century-old idea that's getting surprising new attention: the filter theory of consciousness. First floated by philosophers like William James, and now championed by thinkers like Bernardo Kastrup, this theory flips the whole script. It suggests the brain's main job isn't to generate consciousness, but to receive and filter it. Think of a radio. The radio doesn't create the music it plays. The music is already out there, broadcast as invisible waves all around it. The radio just tunes into a specific frequency, filters out the static, and turns the signal into sound. Filter theory says your brain works like that. Consciousness is the broadcast, a fundamental, universal field. Your brain is the receiver, tuned to the specific frequency of you, filtering that vast cosmic awareness down into the focused, individual experience you call your life. Now, this is still a minority philosophical view without much hard scientific evidence. Critics correctly point out that it's almost impossible to test. How would you even prove it? You'd need a roll of cosmic consciousness blocking tin foil to see if it worked. Still, the model is compelling because it reframes the evidence we do have. In this view, brain damage that reduces consciousness isn't breaking the generator. It's just messing up the antenna and giving you bad reception. States like deep sleep or anesthesia aren't the processor shutting down, but the receiver simply detuning from the signal. Section 3. The quantum portal in your head. So if the brain is an antenna, what kind of signal is it picking up? Some scientists think the answer lies in the strangest and most fundamental level of reality we know: the quantum realm. Welcome to the world of orchestrated objective reduction, or OR, a theory cooked up by physicist Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. Let's be clear, or theory is highly controversial and way out on the fringes of neuroscience, but its claims are stunning. It proposes that consciousness isn't born from simple electrical zaps between neurons. Instead, it arises from much deeper quantum-level computations happening inside microscopic structures within your neurons called microtubules. Penrose and Hameroff argue these microtubules act like quantum computers, tapping into the fundamental geometry of space-time itself. These tiny quantum events are then orchestrated across the brain to create the single, unified consciousness we all experience. The theory even offers a wild explanation for anesthesia. Hameroff, being an anesthesiologist, argues that anesthetic gases disrupt these delicate quantum processes inside the microtubules, effectively switching consciousness off while leaving other brain functions running. While the theory remains on the fringe, some recent studies have offered hints that quantum effects might indeed occur in microtubules, giving proponents a thread to hang on to. If OR is right, our brain isn't a processor. It's a quantum orchestrator, a portal harnessing the very fabric of the universe. Section 4. The brain's electric ghost. Another theory pulls the focus away from the quantum world and onto something that fills our brain every second, its own electromagnetic field. The Conscious Electromagnetic Information Field Theory, or CEMI, developed by scientist John Joe McFadden, suggests the real home of consciousness isn't our neurons, but the unified EM field they create together. Think of it like this. Each neuron firing is one instrument in an orchestra, but consciousness isn't the sound of a single violin, it's the entire symphony. McFadden argues the brain's EM field is that symphony. When neurons fire in sync, they create a powerful, coherent electromagnetic field that pools information from all over the brain into a unified whole. This field can even feed back and influence the neurons themselves. In this view, consciousness is the shape of that field. Our free will might just be the field's top-down influence telling our body what to do. Now, this theory does say consciousness is generated by the brain, which seems to go against the pure portal idea. But it still radically reimagines the brain as a dynamic transceiver, generating and being influenced by a holistic field of its own making. Awareness isn't a calculation. It's a unified wave. Section 5. Thinking outside the skull. The final challenge to the processor-in-a-box model comes from philosophy. It's called the extended mind thesis, from philosophers Andy Clark and David Chalmers, and it asks a simple question. Where does your mind stop and the rest of the world begin? Think about your smartphone. It holds numbers, appointments, and facts you once had to memorize. When you need that info, you access it instantly. Clark and Chalmers argue that if something functions as part of your memory, then for all practical purposes, it is part of your memory. Your mind isn't just in your brain, it extends into your tools. The notebook you use to organize your thoughts, the gestures you make to solve a problem. These aren't just aids for thinking, they are part of the thinking process. To be clear, this theory is about extending cognition, like memory and problem solving, not necessarily your subjective, in-your-head awareness, but it shatters the idea of the brain as a self-contained processor. It recasts it as a neural portal, a flexible hub designed to loop in your body and the world to create a massive, distributed thinking network. Your self isn't just your brain. It's a dynamic system that includes your body, your tools, and your environment. Conclusion. So is your brain a processor or a portal? The processor story is neat, but it struggles to explain the central mystery of experience itself. The portal story offers a different narrative, one where the brain is a filter for a universal consciousness, a quantum orchestrator, or an electrical ghost in the machine. These ideas are speculative. They push the boundaries of known science, and ideas that suggest consciousness is received from the universe, often used to explain things like near-death experiences, are challenged by recent studies showing these experiences often correlate with spikes in brain activity, not a lack of it. But questioning old paradigms is how science moves forward. These theories force us to confront what we don't know and to imagine what could be possible. We haven't found the answer yet, but the journey from seeing the brain as a computer to seeing it as a potential portal changes everything. It reframes our place in the cosmos, not as isolated minds, but as participants in a much larger, interconnected reality. We've explored some mind-bending territory today, and this is just the start. What do you think? Is your brain a generator or a receiver? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy tackling the biggest questions about reality, make sure to subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. If your brain is a portal, what are you tuned into?